Thank you for joining us. My name is Chloë Lind, and I have Steve Thorne here, who is the Vice President of Product Success at SVT Robotics. Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
All right, so what I'd love to do today is for folks listening that might be starting their automation journey, scoping initial stages of scoping out a project, or even further out, right? Maybe they're 12, 18 months away from needing to deploy. What they can learn from the blood, sweat, and tears you put into this industry, and how they can learn and make better choices moving forward on their own projects. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Sound fair?
Sounds fantastic.
All right, lovely. So to get us started, how did you get into this industry?
By accident, I needed to. I was in the electronics industry, and that's where my qualifications are in. And I started doing software around 1998. Really liked it, and so I was looking for a job in software. And way back then, it was before the dot-com bubble had burst. So software engineers were hopping from one job to another every 3 months to get more wages. There was a job for a company that operated in integration, and I was the only one who turned up for the interview that day out of 6 candidates.
Wow.
And I spent the whole interview telling them I didn't know anything about warehousing or relational databases, but I could learn.
Yep.
And they took me on, and I spent the first year thinking today's the day they're going to find out I know nothing about software, but and also warehousing. And I just grew my knowledge because was so keen to prove myself. And then so I started off software engineering, and then got more and more into solution architecture over the course of my career. So at the very beginning, it was very focused on one project for a long period of time. And then towards the end of my project and now, the end of my career and now, it's very much more multiple projects at the same time, and other people doing the execution of them, but me just looking at the requirements and what needs to be done.
Great. And I know you didn't set out to be in this industry, but how have you liked it so far? What's your favorite thing about it?
My favorite thing about it is seeing things move. There's very tangible results and very quick results to your work. So if you write software or you have a project, you see stuff move. The more complex, the more larger the project, the more satisfying it is, because it becomes like a ballet of different vehicles, different robots moving all at the same time. And it's all this fantastic orchestration, watching it all move. And even now to this day, I get great satisfaction from just watching automation work. And yeah, I did that. Or,
Yeah.
Even being in a grocery store and seeing a box with a particular kind of label on it, and knowing that label was printed by something that I did, or a team that I was working with did.
That's amazing. So you were a systems integrator before, correct?
Yes.
Okay, which is one of the places where you deployed a lot of this automation, right?
Yes, it is.
So what types of problems were customers coming to you all for to help solve?
At the very beginning, and again, I mean, integration automation has changed so much in the last 24 years with the technologies available, and also from Europe to America. So I started off in the UK, and now I'm here in North America. In Europe, they don't have so much room as you have here.
Yeah.
So everything had to be built up. So if they wanted to go bigger, they'd had to go up. So it was a lot of what they call high bay storage systems. So it was how to make pallet storage or light goods storage as dense as possible. So really, at the beginning, the problem we were solving was how can we get more products stored in either the same space or only a very small increase in space. And then over time, as my career progressed and I got into the solution architecture side of things, then it was talking to customers about how we integrate their system and to talk. So I have my host warehouse management system. How do I get that to communicate to make this pallet move from the receiving dock door into some temperature control storage system and out to the shipping dock and be out on the shipping dock for a short enough period of time that the product doesn't melt or doesn't get too warm.
Yeah.
And that's where I saw a lot of, it wasn't so much down to technologies, although that was a part of it. It came down to things like availability of people to work on it. Was there a software developer for that particular customer's IT department that was available? It was also down to ego, who had the best ideas in the room and who wanted to stick by their ideas. So there was sometimes it wasn't so much about compromise or doing the right thing. I also saw a lot of doing something because that's what this particular personality wanted.
Yeah. That sounds fun. Love that. Love that part.
There's
Easy
a
to
lot
solve
of
for.
politics and a lot of cajoling of people, as well as dealing with the automation itself.
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. So, if you step back, like aside from those sort of those dynamics, generally speaking, when it comes to deploying automation, what has made it challenging over the years?
Normally with some of the, like the integrator I worked with and a lot of the other integrators, they had their own portfolio of equipment. So they would go to a customer with their brochure and say, hey, this is everything in this particular color that we've painted. And these are the pieces of automation that we can readily deliver to you. And it's already, everything already talks to each other. Well, a lot of customers didn't want that. So it would always be an alternative technology they needed, or there's only this one particular type of robot that can handle this particular payload. And so then we would have to start talking to that vendor of that technology. How do they communicate? And there was an unwillingness to, well, this is how we do things and that's it. We're not going to change. And there was always this friction about, well, we need this information. Where's it going to come from? So when you wanted to integrate with one piece of technology, what I found and what really surprised me was I couldn't just talk to that person to get this complete solution to work. I had to bring everybody around the table, and then that could take weeks, sometimes months, to get everybody who's available. And again, it was that the personalities, the egos about, okay, well, where can I get this data from? And then sometimes what would happen is well, it's software, so you can figure it out. You'll magically conjure this data. So the problem you had was, okay, now it's I want to communicate to you. But for that to happen, I also need these people here I'm communicating with to change something or give me additional information. And I need these people to change their process because this robot only does it a certain way. So again, although you were talking to one technology, and holistically, a lot of things had to shift and be compromised to fit. It was like a jigsaw puzzle which didn't quite fit, so you have to rather than just cut that part, you'd have to cut other parts to get it to fit in. And again, that was a big surprise to me because I was thinking, well, don't you want the business?
Right.
And it was almost like this unwillingness to know, this is it, we are a square peg, this round hole that you want us to be in. No, sorry, you're going to have to change it to a square hole. And there was this surprising unwillingness for people to change and compromise, just inflexibility.
Yep. And could you describe a moment or a project when you sort of realized the magnitude of some of these problems and how that impacted a successful deployment, right? With, the right tech going live somewhat seamlessly, on schedule, on time, on budget, right?
Probably not the biggest aha moment, but the most painful was working on a project in Holland, and it was for a pharmaceutical company. They manufactured and and shipped the finished product there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were integrating to an ERP system, enterprise resource planning system, and one of the messages had failed transmission, but we couldn't see the failure on within the scope of our software. They couldn't see the failure in their part. So there was this ether somewhere where this message had failed, and nobody could understand, could tell us what message it was, why it failed. But this one message failing brought the entire system, it was like a domino effect. The entire system was down. So I was working for hours trying to figure it out. I was on the phone with the ERP support, and they had a global support network. So I was being transferred from one time zone to the next time zone to the next. And after 6 hours, we finally found out what was wrong. But in the meantime, I had a group of executives from the pharmaceutical company come to the office I was working in and basically just stood over me, watching every keyboard stroke I did.
Wow.
And at one point, one of the big bosses beckoned me over to the window, and he showed me everybody was walking out of the site. And basically he was telling me that they've sent everybody home that day because there's no work for them to do because of this one failed message.
Wow.
Finally got somebody from the ERP support team to say, oh, it's this problem, but we can't access the database from where we are. They gave me instructions on how to access the database, and then it was it was an incomplete transaction, and either I had to force it to be committed or force it to be rolled back. And they couldn't tell me which way to go. And they gave me this big list of, you need to go look at all these transactions. And by this time, we'd been down for, I think it was 8 to 9 hours. Everybody had gone home, and I was desperate because there was nobody else there to help me. So I flipped a coin. This is true. I flipped a coin. Do I force commit or do I force roll back the transaction? And it was a force commit. And then I thought, okay, that's all right, because then we can always change the data if it didn't work. So I flipped the coin. I followed their instructions. I did the force commit, and the system came back up and running. Everything started moving again. So the next day, the next shift could come in and start work. But that was this one message caused this entire system. How much money they lost, I'm too scared to ask or to know. But that was down to like this how fragile integration or bad integration can be, because nobody could see what the problem was. So there was just no visibility. And so from there, I took that powerful lesson. So any future projects I did, it was always, I'm going to have as much logging as possible. I will insist on as much logging and visibility as possible, because I don't want that to happen to anybody else.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thanks for sharing that. I'm there with you with execs behind you. That's intense. And like you said, yeah, such a domino effect from a seemingly like innocent little gap or transaction, right? Or message, right? That's wild. So I'd love to dig into that a little bit more, just talking about the importance of sort of more tier levels, like support and visibility into integrations. Can you describe to me some other sort of scenarios where that need for visibility on the operator and IT level is so critical? Even when you get, solutions stood up, right? They're live, they're in production. What are the types of things that we need to, that these teams need to have visibility into?
if you have the systems where there's multiple technologies, multiple applications at play, and you don't have a single place to view all the logs, all the transactions, your fault finding, your triage takes much longer, and even just getting the various people to provide the triage becomes difficult. Another example, not with this particular site, but with another site I worked at, was the customer had different SLAs with the different parties. So they chose to manage not so much the project, but manage the support themselves. So they had a support contract with this hardware provider, a support contract with this hardware provider, a support contract with the company I was working for, and there's probably about half a dozen different parts to this system. So when there was a problem, what the customer would do was who had the best SLA, who was paid to respond the fastest. And so that was my company. The commitment was within 15 minutes we would have somebody online. So we always got called first, and then we would look to, okay, describe the problem. Okay, looks like it's this company over here. And then, this technology over here, you need to contact that company. And then this company in particular didn't have a very good support network, and their SLA was, we'll get back to you in half a day. But that's not good enough for the customer.
Yeah.
So because we responded and we were still on the call, we're then trying to get pulled into, well, I'm over here, I've got the phone and I'm on this screen, what do I do now? And it's like, well, I don't know that system. But you're an expert.
Right.
You're the integrator.
Right.
Now we're like, I know how to talk to it and I know how it works holistically, but I can't start telling you what color wire to go and check in an electrical cabinet. And so that not having that visibility and being able to clearly say, it's this issue here, that was a very bad situation.
Yeah, sounds painful. So could you explain for folks listening why integration can be so difficult? What are the circumstances that make it particularly painful to connect these different technologies and systems?
Well, no two technologies, if they already have, well, number one, do they have a way of communicating to the outside world? If they don't, it needs to be developed. If they do have something, no two ways of communicating to the outside world, or APIs, application programmable interfaces. No two APIs are the same. Also, in each different technology, how they see the world is very different. It could be I have a technology that's only handling shipping containers. So for them, that's as far as they care about. Just, they'll use nomenclature and terms of reference, which are very shipping oriented, or very much just localized to shipping containers. How that's handled could also be it's the company is from overseas, so it's a different language. So even their integration is in a different language. So I'm now converting message formats, nomenclature, like national languages, trying to convert all of that. Now I've got to map it to how I see the world, how I name things. But I've also got to convey that information to some other technologies, which also have different naming, different ways I see the world. So in a way, you start doing these multi-translations where, okay, this is what it means to you, this is what it means to me, this is what it means to X, this is what it means to Y. And then having to maintain that, almost like that, this dictionary of translations. And then once you have that, you can then actually start doing the integration And then it comes down to what business rules does the customer want to apply. And one of the biggest things, again, one of the biggest issues I saw was, okay, when you see this, when this happens, we need the system to react this way. And I remember being in meetings and I'd start putting up a truth table to say, okay, when this happens and this happens, do this. So we'd have columns for each event type, and then a tick to say when it happened. And if I had these 3 ticks, then I would do this. If one of those ticks was missing, I didn't. And then invariably what happened in these meetings is, oh yeah, but when this happens, we would want that as well. Okay. Can anybody tell me when this happens? No, not really. That would only be a decision from a supervisor who's looking across the floor and can just, from their years of experience, can just see that the flow's slightly off.
Right.
So there was nothing that was data driven. And so all of a sudden it's like, well, how do I react to a person's gut reaction, a hunch that something's going to happen? So then we would start having to add screens to say, okay, well, now when he sees this, he's going to press this button and then we'll react, because there was no way to have the data. And the discussions would always be, well, it's software, surely you would know. And it's like, if you can't define what triggers us to react that way, if I don't have fixed parameters to operate with, it can't happen.
It's not magic, Steve.
It isn't magic, and that was always one of the. It's automation, not auto magician.
Love that.
So that was one of the other things you would see would be, well, I moved this over here. Surely the system would know I moved it.
Right.
And so no, unless we didn't have a crystal ball, nobody's watching you. There's no big brother. If you've moved it from one location to another, you have to input that information
somewhere. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm hearing a lot of custom code.
Yes, always.
Always.
No 2 projects. Certainly in the very large integrations, no 2 projects are the same. And I got an explanation why for that. When there's large complex projects and large sums of money being paid, customers tend to, well, if I'm paying this much, well, I want it to be exactly how I want it. And again, with large systems, they take a long time, but and standardization was always something that the integrators wanted to give the customers, but the customers never wanted it. But then again, those big projects and just the way integration projects the work, there's no cheap alternatives. So if I'm going to wait 6 months, 12 months, I want exactly what I want. But maybe if you can give this to me next week, I can change my process. But that was never something that could be offered back in the day.
It's the standard. That's the traditional way. There's no shortcut, right? No matter what money you throw at it.
Yeah, it's the paradigms the integration industry live within.
Yep.
And so, it was very difficult to break out of that. And again, when we talked about realizations, that just these after the 10th weekend on site or the 5th month on site, it's like always thinking there's got to be another way to do things, a better way to do things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that tees us up nicely. In case people aren't familiar with the SOFTBOT platform, I'd love for you to just give like a high level explanation of sort of why that exists, because it ties in really, really well with sort of the problem that you lived and breathed for so many years.
Thanks. Yes, I mean, it was the reason for joining SVT was this opportunity to be able to change the paradigm we operated in, and also just improve the workers in that industry's life, like just being so long away from family and friends. So anyway, the SOFTBOT platform. So where I described to you before, I have this technology that that's going to work through the system to eventually have messaging talk to this application. Everything was geared to this technology's got to talk to this technology here, regardless of what's happening in the middle. So what the SOFTBOT platform does is I only integrate any technology only integrates to the SOFTBOT platform. It doesn't have to worry about anything else in the system. It could be a completely standalone solution, or it's that technology working in harmony with another 12 technologies. Mm-hmm. But all it sees is the SOFTBOT platform. So the SOFTBOT platform is a way that any technology can connect easily. I'm only integrating to one thing. And then with the portfolio of technologies that we talk to, and with them being so modular, like these off-the-shelf modules, it means now that, hey, I've got this system that wants to talk to technology X. Oh, we have technology X already existing. Deploy the SOFTBOT platform, have the connector and the orchestrations for technology X. Away you go. Oh, we use warehouse management system Y. Oh, we have that off the shelf as well. So we just connect these things in. Yes, there's some configurations that need to be done, but I can give this to you now. Are you willing to change your process, because you can have this within weeks as opposed to months or even years. So I always like to think as SOFTBOT platform is like the United Nations of automation. So doesn't, this robot speaks in German, this one speaks in Chinese, etc., etc. We just do the translation to the SOFTBOT platform language, and then if I need to talk to something else, I just convert it from SOFTBOT platform language to what that technology needs. And if there are additional pieces of data that are required, the way the data structure is architected is that custom data can easily be ingested without lots of custom code.
Yep. And just because some people might have a particular WMS, they might be on the path to upgrade that WMS, so that might change. And there might be some hesitation to start a new automation project when they're going to have to rebuild or redo an integration. So how does that work with the SOFTBOT platform?
Well, if compare it to the way we all know, or the way we want to move away from a pilot project, really the software cost for a pilot project compared to a full-blown project, there was very little difference. If I've got to get this application to talk to one robot, I have to do the same amount of code as if I wanted it to talk to 100 robots. So with these pre-existing connectors that we have in the SOFTBOT platform, I already have it on the shelf. So you can use it regardless if it's one robot for a pilot project, or I use it for a full-blown existing manufacturing plant or warehouse with 30, 40 robots.
Got it. And so in this scenario, say a customer has a WMS, maybe they have multiple WMSs and maybe a homegrown system. How is that supported within that SOFTBOT platform?
Well, if they're existing connection, if the WMSs are already on our portfolio, then again, we're off the shelf with those. If it's something new and the APIs are made available to us, we can connect within 45 days from contract being signed to having a tested connector, which we have done. We do that, and we did it for ProNet.
Oh, okay.
We have a good example there. But 45 days to develop a connector. And then with the homegrown, again, it's just as long as they can tell us how it works, how to communicate, what their messaging looks like. Again, we're never telling any of these applications or these technologies, hey, you've got to change. Don't do it. You be you. You don't have to change. We'll take your data. If there is something missing, okay, maybe we need to have a conversation then. But if I can get that data from somewhere else because you don't have it or you need it, but this person can't, this technology can't give it, maybe I can pull that from somewhere else or add default data, perhaps. So that there's all these ways we can do it with our orchestrations. So again, we can take what would be a big problem for the current way or the old way of doing integration. Those big problems become much smaller problems because with using the SOFTBOT.
And how does, just to level set, when you say connectors, you're talking about like these pre-built integrations, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we're just taking data for a specific use case. So, for example, orders, customer orders. We're taking those customer orders and then mapping those into the SOFTBOT platform in our order domain models. And then any other edge tech that needs operates with orders, we can download that, or we can convert them to whatever the edge tech requires via their connector.
Got it. And then you also said orchestrations. Could you give some examples of what that might look like and how that plays into these integrations?
Yeah. So a very simple and tangible example, something we've done very recently, is orders coming down from a host warehouse management system. The robot technology that needed to process those orders, they had a requirement to have a flag set to identify that this order is what they referred to as a super single, meaning it's just one item being ordered. So a lot of internet fulfillment orders, just a single item. So they needed a flag set to say, hey, this is a super single. So rather than asking the WMS, hey, you need to add a field to your API, you need to add a process to set this flag, we just we ingested their order. Then we had an orchestration to go, okay, this order's been created. Does it just have one order line? Does that one order line have just a quantity of one? And if the answer to both of those questions was yes, we would set a flag ourselves to say this is a super single. And then when the robot technology needed that order, we'd already preset that flag. We would just give the order, convert it in the connector to what the robot technology needed.
Got it. And again, so you're not asking even the host systems nor the edge tech to modify anything on their end, or they're not doing a bunch of extra work to accommodate that.
That's correct.
That work. Okay.
And again, if we're not a big monolithic piece of software, so to actually do that work was very fast because we're just writing one piece of code, one orchestration, one body of code to do that.
Got it. So it's not taking months.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
Takes hours.
Hours. Wow. Okay. Before I let you go, any sort of last piece of advice that you might give to somebody starting out in their automation journey, or maybe, hey, we're tasked with deploying X, Y, and Z automation by peak. What's the number one thing that you would tell them?
If you have a process that you want to automate, don't look to just copy that process exactly and automate it. Look at, you have the opportunity to automate. Look at ways of changing your process to really take advantage of the automation. Too many times in my past career, I've seen a paper-driven system just be replicated in automation, and all those advantages that you would have had with that automated system are almost like taken away from you because of that being so rigid in what you wanted. So take the opportunity not just to adopt automation, but to revisit your processes to see what can I really take advantage of this. I mean, yes, I'm making maybe because I can't hire enough people, I'm making this much easier. But there are other things in the process that you can automate as well. So that would be my advice.
Amazing.
As well as obviously buy the SOFTBOT platform to do the work.
Of course. All right. Thank you so much, Steve. It's been a pleasure.